Hello, my name's Alan Foom, and today I'm going to talk about petroleum products consumption in the USA in 2020. Trains, automobiles, and trucks, ships and factories as well. So basically this is what's been happening in the US oil industry in the downstream side in terms of product demand over the last year with the impact of COVID and the restrictions related to COVID. So there have been fairly severe impacts on the responses to the horrific COVID pandemic, as well as all the lives lost, the hospitalization, all the other bad things that have happened to a lot of people. There's also been a severe economic effect. And oil products consumption dropped to 68% of normal in April, so almost a third of consumption ended rapidly, drastically, as a result of restrictions that had to be put in place to try to control the situation. Consumption has recovered, so it recovered to roughly 88% of normal by the start of October and 94% of normal by the end of December. So in terms of economics, if not in terms of medicine, tragically, we are recovering in America. Different products are affected in different ways. So the products I'll be talking mainly about will be gasoline, kerosene, jet fuel and distillate, which are used for different things. All of this data comes from the US Energy Information Administration, the EIA. They publish a report weekly on Wednesday morning US time. And the EIA is great because they produce a lot of data. It's very transparent, it's very to use, and other countries could really follow them. So why is this important? Well, the USA still accounts for 20% of the world's oil demand. China's catching up, but the USA is still king of the throne for the time being. And oil demand is closely related to economic activity, which was severely depressed during the lockdowns. And recovery in oil consumption is a recovery in economic activity, particularly in transportation, which is one of the main uses of oil, but obviously not the only use. There's also a lot of industrial use, domestic use, etc. And the USA has reliable, readily available data from the EIA. Can't thank them enough. Wish other countries would follow them. Other countries' data, a lot harder to access, not as easily available. So let's look a little bit at prices. So you have three zones. So first of all, you had the old normal. So this is WTI, the main American crude. This is Brent, the main international crude. And please see my video on crude oil benchmarks for the explanation of all of that. The red is West Canadian Select, which is a heavy crude imported from Canada, which is blended with American crudes because of oil refineries, needing to have a medium gravity crude. Again, please see my video on crude oil benchmarks. The blue here is natural gas liquid, which is things like butane, propane, etc. Again, please see my video on natural gas liquids for an explanation. And the green is Henry Hub, which is natural gas. So what you had was kind of steady state with a bit of a wobble, then bong. Massive fall in April, where briefly WTI prices went negative in terms of futures. Again, this was due to storage problems at a place called Cushing. Please see my video on USA storage and why that is important. And then a recovery, and then recoveries on towards December. But what you can see here is that the prices for natural gas stayed steady because people need to heat their homes and generate some electricity, and also the price of natural gas liquids fell less than expected. So this is shown in this graph here, so that's comparing July 19 with October 20, so you can see significant drops in both Brent and WTI and WCS. Less of a drop in the natural balancing point, so this is gas within Europe, so that's within Great Britain, which are converted into dollars and MCFs. And this is natural gas liquids composite. Again, this is looking at natural gas liquids, no change virtually, and a little bit of rise in Henry Hub. Now this is Waha, which is the hub for the Permian Basin, where they're having significant problems with gas exports because the pipelines aren't there to the extent that they need to. This has led to flaring, which I think is absolutely disgusting, absolutely appalling. Burning gas, just burning it into the atmosphere. And flaring needs to be reduced, and they're going to be reducing that when pipelines are built. But because of the pipeline difficulties, Waha that does not is the Waha price significantly less than the Henry Hub price on the same product. Anyway, that's a rant for flaring, which is not my favorite topic, but we'll move on to the what petroleum products actually are. So petroleum products are, here is a distillation within oil refining. So different temperatures, different weight or different gravity of product comes off. So at the very top you get propane and butane, which is natural gas liquids, which are mainly used in petrochemicals. Obviously you do have propane heaters. Then you have gasoline or petrol, which is mainly used for cars. Then you have kerosene jet fuel, which is mainly used for aeroplanes, although some of that will be blended in with diesel, which I think is what has been happening over the past few months. Then you have diesel, which is used in trucks, ships, freight trains, and also used for heating oil. Some of that is also used for petrochemicals. Then you have heavy fuel oil. Some of that is used for shipping, but a lot less now due to environmental regulations, and also used for heat, although that can be cracked down into lighter components further. And then you have other products such as lubricating oils, wax, asphalt, etc., which are non-combustible and are also used within industry and for construction. So that's the different types of petroleum products. So we'll be concentrating on gasoline, kerosene, and diesel. So what percentage of oil comes out? What percentage of product comes out of your typical barrel of American oil? So in 15 to 19. Roughly 46% went into gasoline, 8% went into jet fuel, 20% went into diesel. So 3/4 went into this chunk of the pie. Then you had a little bit of residual fuel oil and then other petroleum products. During the lockdown, you had a situation, we had a big crunch on the gasoline and a big crunch on the jet fuel. Less so on diesel, and then other products were there, but they were producing less. And then by October, we're recovering to something not too far off normality. Again, a little bit more gasoline, a little bit less jet fuel than normal, but that looks not too different to that. So we're getting better towards recovery. And when you're looking at products as percentage of the 15 to 19 average, again, all this data is from the EIA, so that's the graph. That's what we went down to in the peak and the trough of the lockdowns. Then by October we went back up again, and now we're not too far away from normality. Natural gas liquids were affected the least, and actually now producing more than before. In terms of distillate or diesel, about 96%, so you're almost back there. In terms of gasoline, it varied a little bit. Went up to 93% October, down to 85% now, and jet fuel is steadily climbing upwards. So we're in a position of recovery. So these are charts I've produced, again from the EIA data, that look at the different products. So the blue line here is for the right-hand scale, which is percentages. So that's a 100% line. So that's the fall. So it fell to a relatively low point here, here in April, and then you have this is the average, the mean in red, and then the high and the low 15 to 19. So that's roughly what it normally would be. And the green lines are what was produced in 2020. The thick green line is spot for that particular week, and the dashed green line is the 4-weekly average that the EIA produced to take out, weekly variations. So fall, slow recovery, and then not quite to where we were before. If you look at gasoline, again, same format of graph. So that's your percentage of total. So went down to nearly half in terms of gasoline production. So boing, rapid fall, and then slow recovery. So again, dark green is the spot for the week, and the dashed green is the 4-weekly average. And that's the general range for the last 4 years. In terms of kerosene for jet fuel, it's declined, and it's stayed declined. Obviously, plane travel has been affected far more than car travel or trucks or trains for delivering freight. People just either don't get on planes, or it's just too dangerous, or they don't feel, destinations are closed, and the airlines have been hit tragically very badly. And what you've got here is, however, beginnings of a slow recovery, and you can see it's a lot more jittery in terms of production of kerosene. Now moving to trucks and trains and boats. So that's distillate fuel oil, which is diesel. You see a situation here where there was less of a fall and then more of a recovery, and you're now roughly at the 100%. So this is a drop off that tends to happen at the very end of the year at Christmas. You can see that happened before. So again, distillate has been less affected, and what I've heard is that some kerosene is blended into the distillate to sort of try to manage the situation. And next we're going to look at implied consumption. So this is also looking at stocks. So gasoline, about 40% of the US oil demand. Consumption dropped to 55% of the long-term average, since recovered to about 93, around 90. You know, it wobbles a bit around that. And stocks have now declined below the long-term average. Distillate oil fuel, about 20% of demand. Demand dropped to 69% and briefly in April, since recovered to over 90. There was quite a build in stocks, and the stocks are still above the 5-year maximum. And jet fuel plummeted to 21% of the long-term average, since recovered to about 54% October, a little bit more than that now. Stocks have stayed close to the long-term average due to cuts in production, where kerosene has effectively been blended in distillate. So this is the graph for the gasoline. So that's your average production, 9.2 million barrels a day. That's your average stocks. So that's usually there's a little bit of a hump in the early part of the year, and then boing. So that's basically when consumption fell off a cliff, and all of this gasoline started building up because you had to keep running the refineries. Now refineries got slowed down, fewer refinery runs, fewer utilization, and the stocks effectively started getting depleted. And then there's an end of year rise, which is what normally tends to happen. So gasoline doesn't look looks fairly that we've survived a difficult time. In terms of kerosene, stocks have been kind of at the average, a little bit of, maybe a little bit less, and production has significantly has kind of fallen off. So that's the production curve. So production in blue, implied consumption, which is production plus stock change, in orange, again falling off at the end of the year, and that's the fall of the cliff with the lockdowns. Looking at the diesel's distillates, stocks were kind of at your long-term average, but they've since built up quite significantly. Again, decline in the autumn, and then kind of moving along something higher than the long-term average. In terms of consumption, again, boom, rapid decline with the lockdowns, but production kept going, hence the stocks kept building up. Two started balancing out, and then a situation where production was greater than consumption, hence a slight stock drawdown. So trying to get back to normality, trying to get back to where we need to be. So have we reached a new equilibrium? We don't know. Consumption's now is about 90 to 95% of normal demand by December 2020. Obviously, there's a situation where you have a second wave in America. People in hospital, people are tragically dying. Obviously, a very difficult situation. Gasoline diesel consumption is about 90% of the long-term average. Quite where it'll go, we don't know. And jet fuel, it's about 55% of normal thereabouts. Other oils and NGLs are actually above normality. So what happens next? Well, we don't know. In terms of pandemic response, so government, business, consumer, how will people behave? What will people do? Both short-term and then longer-term secular trends. So will people move out of the suburbs move out of the cities into suburbs? Will people drive more? We don't know. Will people do more telecommuting? We don't know. Obviously, politics. We've got a new administration now. Trump has gone. Biden's in charge. What will they do? Again, quite a lot of talk, but what will that be the real action? And economic recovery. To what extent it will be. Hopefully it will be very strong. There's quite a lot of argument about that, whether people will bounce back or whether it will be long-term scarring. Obviously everybody hopes for the former, but we don't know. So thank you very much. So that's an overview of what's happened in America in terms of oils. Look forward to speaking to you in the future. Thank you. Bye-bye.